Cromeens, and welcome back to the Quit Getting Screwed podcast, where we talk about all the things, especially in business, in the construction industry, just kind of in general. So today I want to dive into Think and Grow Rich, which is a great book. But before we get there, I want to talk about my business development journey, right? So I run a law firm, as most of you know, and have since 2006. And so we currently have 25 employees. So that's a lot. It's a lot for me anyways. Never having gone to business school or anything like that. Never, haven't gone to any kind of school to learn how to run a business. So I graduated law school in 2006. I went to work for my real estate professor, who was a solo practitioner for a year and a half, until 2006 when I had to start my own law firm. And I say I had to because I was running the collections and the legal side of mine and my husband's material supply business. And it became such a big project that I couldn't have another full-time job. And so I opened my own firm to be able to do that. And slowly after that, added on new clients. But I never went to business school. They don't teach you how to run a business in law school. I've kind of seen my family run small businesses. Wouldn't say they were overly successful in the management, but they kept the doors open. They kept people employed. So did have some vision there. But I have to say, from when I started my business in 2006, like I said, it was kind of a necessity of the situation. So there's never any intent, right? Wasn't headed anywhere. I wasn't doing anything. I was just kind of reactionary. I had to go collect our money and work on our legal issues, and kind of picked up other clients to do the same thing for over time. But there was really wasn't headed anywhere. There's no goals. I didn't think about anything like that. I mean, for a long time, everything was just reactionary. It was what I had to do to keep the doors open so I could work on the legal work I needed to and pay the small staff that I had. Eventually, within the first 6 months, I probably had one employee that was helping me do the collection work and file all the paperwork and get everything sent out. And it slowly grew from there, but I never had an intention. I never had a goal for the firm to be anything really besides enough of a paycheck for me to get paid, to pay whoever worked for us, and then to collect the money that, our company was owed. So there really no plan for growth or development. And that I ran my business for a long time like that, from 2006 to really the beginning of 2019, right? That's nearly 13 years. I just was running. And I don't think it's uncommon for business owners, especially, just to do whatever it takes to get through the day. Put out whatever fires are there, make sure you have enough money for payroll, and just, trying to get the next client and not really have a substantiated plan for the next steps or how we're going to get there. Especially too, like in construction or in any, business at its core is the same, right? There's systems, processes, money that comes in, money that goes out. That part is the same whether it's construction business or a law firm. And so the business side of it, I was never very good at. And so just kind of, did whatever worked to make payroll and, didn't really understand billing, and all that stuff have come a long way in the 13 years since I started in 2006. But I don't think it's not an uncommon story, right? Especially when someone starts a business, they start a business normally because they love the thing that they're going to do, and they think they can do it better than the other people out there. Or normally it's better for whoever they're working for currently, right? You see somebody like, man, I could do this so much better, and you're good at it and you enjoy it, and so you go start your own thing. No business background, and very quickly you realize that you don't get to do the thing that you started the business for. If you want to keep the business open, you have to learn how to run a business, right? So in 2019, I started reading some books on how to grow the business, and really started focusing on that. And so since then, I've really been on planning goals for my business, where we're headed, development goals for me and my team, developing a management team and what that looks like. And then I'm still working on processes and what that looks like. So really having these things that are the next step to growth. And a big part of my growth trajectory has been books, reading books, watching videos, but a lot of reading. And so I want to share with you some of the books that I've read along the way that I found that are extremely helpful, and kind of give you the highlights of what's in there, what I learned and what I took from them, and how I use that to run a better business, and set goals and be more intentional on running the business besides just doing what it takes to get through the day and being like, man, I'm so glad I made it today. I think I'm going to make money for payroll this week. So, but, having a bigger goal, like how do we get out of that stress situation and to being something more on purpose? So it's been a long journey, and, kind of figuring it out. So one of the books that I've read and I think is hugely important is Think and Grow Rich, by Napoleon Hill. Now, this book was originally published in 1937, and Napoleon Hill was hired by Andrew Carnegie, who was the founder of the steel industry. And Andrew Carnegie, very bright man, obviously, but he knew that there was something different about him and the founders of industry, and he wanted to figure out what made them different so he could share it with everybody and tell the secrets of how to build a successful business, how to get what you want, basically. And he had foresight to know that he didn't have the time to do it, but he hired Napoleon Hill to do it. And so Napoleon Hill, for a course of 20 years, interviewed the leaders of industry. We're talking Henry Ford, Alexander Graham Bell, Rockefeller, Theodore Roosevelt, and Wilbur Wright, the founding fathers of America and American industry, and interviewed them and studied them to figure out what made them different from anybody else to create these large successful businesses and be able to run them. Obviously, it's been updated some since it was originally published in 1937, but it's still, they've sold over 13 million copies. I mean, I think the information in here and who it came from, and especially for the time, is just phenomenal, right? And to really learn from the founders of industry that didn't have anybody in front of them to look at. Like right now, we can look at them and say, man, how did they do it? They didn't have anybody like that. They had to figure it out from scratch, and just what it took, and the ideas that they had, and how to develop them, and how to move forward. And so that's what Napoleon Hill did for 20 years. And then he published this book. So in this book, there are 13 different steps to think and grow rich. And so we're going to kind of dive into those a little at a time. Today, we're just kind of introduction to the book, who wrote it, and really the first overarching theory before you even get into any of the steps, on how to move forward and reach your goal of Think and Grow Rich and run a successful business, right? Before we even get into any of the actual steps, the fundamental idea, the first one you need to grasp is what you think is what you can achieve. And so what does that mean? That means when you believe it, you will see it, right? And if you don't believe that you can do it, then you won't be able to do it. And that is really the first step, is getting your mind, your thoughts in order, right? And I think so many people today, I mean, like I had Tom Reber on, and, winning the contractor fight. And one of his first chapters is about getting rid of the head trash and all the negative thoughts that you think about yourself, that you're not worth it, you're not doing a good job. And if you think that, that's what you'll believe, and that's how you'll behave. It structures your whole life, right? Your thoughts are way more powerful than you think. Your thoughts are in control of everything: how you feel, how you act, where you go, where the goals that you'll set, if you'll reach them or not. If you don't believe that you can reach the goals, then you're not going to. So the first thing really is to get your thoughts in order, to focus on what you think. And there's some really great books to take that back. So one of the first books I read on that specific topic of thoughts and how powerful they are and how essential they are to your success, right, is Dr. David Burns' a book called Feeling Good. There's also another book out there, The Magic of Thinking Big. It's also one from the same time frame as Napoleon Hill. But Dr. David Burns, is a doctor, a psychologist, who was trying to figure out why depressed people stayed depressed even though they were still on medication. We would give them medication for depression, and they just still stayed just as depressed as they were before. And so he tried an experiment of, let's take a baseline of what people think, and then we're going to work on changing their thoughts from negative thoughts about themselves, negative thoughts about their situation, to positive ones, and what are the effects. And he's got, it's a great book, and I highly recommend you can listen to it on Audible. So Dr. David Burns and Feeling Good. What he says is that, and the science and the studies prove it, is that once you change your mind, you can change the way you feel. So, his research with actual depressed patients show that with cognitive behavioral therapy, which is what changing your mind is called in the scientific world, is way more effective at ending depression than drugs of any kind. So, he had people come in and work on how to change their thoughts to a more positive perspective. And I will tell you, it's not something that happens overnight. It's something you have to work on continuously, because for some reason, the negative is like the neutral setting. That's where everybody starts, and it really takes work to change the negative mindset into a positive one. So you have to, every time you hear those, I'm not worth it, this client's never going to hire me, start thinking the opposite, right? Like, hey, I'm worth it, I'm worth charging what I do a good job. And this guy obviously is going to hire me because I'm the best, right? And if you go in that with that attitude, you might not always win every job, but you're more likely to win jobs and win clients and get paid what you're worth if you believe it, right? And so really before anything else, you need to change your thoughts. And there's some great quotes on this. I already said one from Dr. Wayne Dyer. Well, when we believe it, we'll see it. Not when we see it, we'll believe it. But if you believe it, once you believe it in your mind, that you will see it will come to fruition through the things that you do. Whatever you believe, that's what's going to happen, right? So if you believe it and you honestly believe it, your mind will find a way to make it happen. So, saying things like that, they've already happened. Like, I have $1 million company, and then your mind will work backwards on how to get there and the things that you need to work on. And honestly, the other thing that I found too is that you can't work on growing your business without also growing yourself. It is very much expanding your mind, expanding your knowledge, and listening to your intuition as a business owner. You always know, if you'll stop and listen, what you need to work on next. You know that area that you just haven't looked at yet because you didn't want to dive into, because you know it's going to be a mess, right? So you kind of ignore it. You know that area. You know where it is. And we all have them, and we all have a process. I mean, what you need to do to really grow the business is quit ignoring it, quit pretending it like it's not there, quit being afraid of the work that it's going to take, and just dive in and figure out what we can do better, what's going wrong. Those are really the main steps of running a better business, right? Something that's less stressful, more satisfying, makes more money, are all these, things that we're going to go over. But the first thing before we even get there is changing your mind, knowing that it is possible, believing that you've already done it. And so when those negative thoughts creep in, you need to combat them with, no, I'm not that way. I am worth it. I do a great job. People are lucky if they get, if they hire me to work on their stuff, because I'm really good at what I do. And I believe that in the legal field. I'm really good at what I do. Absolutely. I have lots of creative solutions, creative ideas. I try to create a system that's built around what my clients want, right? And so one of those things for me was, I want to make the fees as predictable as possible and the turnaround time. And we're always going to answer your questions or phone calls or emails within 24 hours. Those are the things that my clients, being in the construction industry, need. So I've kind of really been in their shoes, because I've been there and know what they need, and kind of built a business around that. And then just growing it step by step, and things to be added to make it work more and more like a machine, and less guesswork, less reactionary. Like, this situation happens, here's what we do. And this situation happened, here's what we do. And we just keep getting better and better and better. But that doesn't happen without you, the owner, having some personal growth too, and reading books, whether that's personal development books, business books, going to classes, going to seminars. That's all personal growth as well. So today was just kind of an introduction to the who wrote Think and Grow Rich and why, and that it's from the founders of industry, and that before we even get to the 13 steps, the first introduction, the first thing you need to do and to be successful in anything that you do is to believe that you can and know that you can, and to get your head right about where you're headed and what you're going to do. You can't set goals and be like, yeah, I'm never going to reach that. Then you never will. So the main thing is get your head right. In the next series, we'll dive into one or two of the steps, and we'll get through all 13, kind of like the Cliff Notes version of Think and Grow Rich, so you don't have to sit and read it or listen to the full thing on Audible. Although there are some really good stories in here, which I'll bring some of them up. But I'm here to help, and I hope that you will, go look up that other book on feeling good and really work on ways to work on positive thoughts. So, I'm out here. If you need any help, feel free to reach out to me on social media or email me. I'm around. All right, guys. Thanks.